All right, happy Friday to all of you
too.
beautiful people. I'm Reid Fowler, this is Glasheen, and we're coming to you live from the DK Live studios here in sunny and cold Boston. But what's not so cold is the Red Sox winning their fourth ALCS pennant in the last 15 years. Sorry, Tom, in the back there. And the banner is already waving high at Fenway.
Yeah, we'll leave the crew out back. We'll leave them be. There's some hard feelings. But it's not only baseball talk tonight. We're going to get to that later in the show. We're going to go to NASCAR, NBA, Week 7 in the NFL, which is a perfect segue to our first segment.
I know. Let's introduce our esteemed panel. Rosalie Michaels, the fantasy girl herself. DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, not to be mistaken as a fantasy guy. It was too easy of a joke. And Ian Hartitz from the Action Network. You can find Ian on the Action Network app, available on iPhones, Androids, and everywhere else in between. So we'll get you guys started with the NFL spin move. Obviously, huge news just coming through, putting a fantasy spin on the top news and stories. Leading us off is the Browns reportedly trading Carlos Hyde to the Jaguars. So Ian, what does this mean for Hyde's value with the Jags and for rookie Nick Chubb? What do you think?
So Hyde's reportedly not supposed to play this week, which means we'll have at least one more week of TJ Yeldon as the RB1. But man, moving forward, I think we're going to see what we saw last year, which is Chris Ivory role for Carlos Hyde, which is kind of the early down plotter goal line role. But I think Yeldon's still going to be plenty involved. I think we're going to see a two-back committee with near even splits, and Yeldon should be getting the more fantasy-friendly pass down work. So I wouldn't be giving up on him just yet if I'm a Yeldon owner. And then in Cleveland, yeah, how can you not love Nick Chubb? I mean, ideally, I think Duke Johnson would get some more work as well, but I think you can almost slide Chubb in for Hyde's workload to an extent, and assume maybe Duke gets an extra bump in snaps and carries, but all over the Nick Chubb train.
So Rosalie, you think this puts Nick Chubb as an RB2 right away? I've seen some rankings, the guys in the industry, that have him as an RB1 this week, obviously going against Tampa Bay. What do you think? Rosalie?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get over the Chubb train.
Oh, yes.
I like it. That's cute, the Chubb train. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, Nick Chubb, this is great news for Nick Chubb, not good news for Carlos Hyde owners, obviously. Because we have to remember, number one, not only is Hyde going to a situation where he's not the lead back anymore, because Jamal Charles is there too, let's not forget that. But he's going from a team that was third in rushing attempts, fifth in rushing yards, and had 8 rushing touchdowns, to a team that's 22nd in attempts, 18th in yards, and has only 2 rushing touchdowns. So not only is he getting a smaller role, but he's getting a smaller role on a smaller rushing team as well. So bad news for Hyde, good news for Chubb.
Jeff, what do you think, man in the middle? I mean, this has to be an uptick for Chubb. Obviously, he's a rookie. We've seen big games, not a lot of volume. But what does this mean for both sides?
I mean, it's definitely an uptick from Chubb. I mean, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I would hold the reins back a little bit. I mean, this guy's not really what you'd call a great pass catcher. At least he wasn't in college. He also had a pretty severe ACL injury in college. Didn't look exactly the same. Didn't look that great in preseason either. Now, obviously, he's had a couple runs the last couple weeks, so maybe the health is coming back. I think there's potential. But I think this move is just as much about Duke Johnson and the Browns wanting to use him more. I mean, he caught like 70 passes last year, and he's been way below that pace. So I think you're going to see more Duke Johnson. I'm actually higher on him this week personally. And I don't actually mind the spot for Carlos Hyde. I mean, he wasn't really that effective the last few weeks. I think the Jags can run the ball with the right personnel, and I think Carlos Hyde fits the bill there. So we'll see. Short term, I like Duke Johnson this week.
You know who we didn't mention? Leonard Fournette. I mean, what does this do for him? I mean, obviously they're scared, and essentially that's why they made the trade.
I mean, I think it speaks bad about Leonard Fournette's injury that they traded for Carlos Hyde. I think you might not see Leonard Fournette for multiple weeks.
It's interesting, too, especially how Doug Marrone was positive at the beginning of the week. We might get him, and then holding out of practice certainly doesn't go. Hey, speaking of bad news, it was not good last night for the Cardinals. The dissension in the desert, I guess, is starting after another dismal offensive performance last night. Sorry, Rosalie. It is the end of the Mike McCoy era in Arizona, even with a new OC in charge. Byron Leftwich. I thought he was still a backup quarterback in this league. Are you even interested in anyone in this offense going forward? Rosalie, let's go to you first.
I just want to say the dissension is not starting. It's been here for a while.
Okay, we're being nice.
And I am loath to call it the Mike McCoy era. I mean, was pretty short-lived, and
Cup
it
of
might
coffee.
be more of an error. So, but yeah, you know what? This is actually great news for the Cardinals offense because it couldn't get much worse, right? We're looking at a bad offensive line. So, I mean, a bad offensive line. We definitely have that. But if you look at Leftwich, he's never called any plays. So that's the downside. The upside is that he is somebody that Bruce Arians was actually priming for coaching future. He played under Arians for 3 seasons. So for DJ, Fitz, and Kirk owners, this is good news, especially DJ, he's got the easiest rest of the season schedule for running backs. His next 3 games, San Francisco, which he scored 2 touchdowns on a few weeks ago, and then he's got a bye, and then he's got KC. So if Leftwich goes straight to the Bruce Arians playbook, which David Johnson obviously had that huge year underneath, and these players start to thrive, they've got 10 days till the next game. It's a wait and see, but there is hope.
Jeff, yeah, not a promising night for David Johnson or Josh Rosen. How do you feel? Interested in anyone going forward here?
I mean, not really. Christian Kirk is a player. I mean, I think towards the end of the year you might see get more involved. I mean, he's got the most upside for me out of anyone outside of David Johnson, who, if they actually can figure out how to use again, I mean, obviously has plenty of upside. It's a wait and see approach, though. I mean, I'm not jumping on anyone just because of the OC next week. I think Christian Kirk is a player you'll see develop more, get more snaps towards the end of the year. Hopefully they can figure it out with David Johnson. If his price remains cheap, he's always going to be an option.
Ian, your thoughts?
How can you not have hope? This is Byron Leftwich. Same guy ran down the field with a broken leg at Marshall.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, I think David Johnson, how can you not have at least a little bit of optimism? I mean, he's only had 4.3 targets per game this season. That was at 7.5 in 2016. And even more concerning, we've barely even seen him in this slot or as a wide receiver. He's only lined up there on 6% of his snaps this season. And that was at 20 in 2016. So if all the stuff about Byron Leftwich adhering to, Bruce Arians' school of thought and all that is true, I'm looking forward to seeing DJ kind of unleashed as the receiving talent that we know he can be. So also agree with the Christian Kirk take. He actually has more targets than Larry Fitzgerald since Rosen took over under center. So keeping an eye on those two.
These types of changes blow my mind. 7 weeks into the season, you see the Bills at 3 quarterbacks, and then coordinators are getting fired.
Mike McCoy, this has happened before.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like,
let's be
man,
honest. Speaking of sputtering offenses, the Tennessee Titans, not to be mistaken with the Tennessee Kids, I went to JT concert last night here in Boston, have not scored a touchdown in 2 weeks, with OC Matt LaFleur saying the Titans offense has been humbled. Now they head to London to take on the Chargers. You
should be humbled.
I know.
You peaked last night.
Do you have your eye on anyone in this Tennessee offense this week, Jeff? What do you think?
No. I mean, this offense has been pathetic all year outside of one random shootout game with the Eagles that went to overtime. They throw the ball like 20 times a game. Derrick Henry's been useless. Dion Lewis, who should be a great passing fit in this game, outside of one game, has been pretty much nothing. I mean, Corey Davis, he showed some rapport. I mean, he's shown some upside, but again, it's one game. This team just does not want to pass the ball. It's not a high volume pass offense. I don't see why anything would change this week. The Chargers defense looked good last week. They got their pass rush going, and the Titans gave up 11 sacks last week. I've literally never rostered a Titans player on DraftKings this year, and I'm not going to start now. I might have rostered Henry once, but I'm not gonna start again here.
That was nice of Jeff to admit he may have once.
No, I mean, let's be honest, none of us are. So Matt LaFleur and the Rams, I mean, with the Rams, he was a top 10 total offense last year. So what do you think? Where or how can they improve, in your opinion, Ian?
I think it's about time we start giving Jared Goff a little more credit, I think, than he gets around the league. But no, I mean, it's the problem with Tennessee, especially this week. A lot of things they do, I mean, well for them, not very well compared to the rest of the league's offenses. Like Corey Davis, he's got top 5% target share and market share of teams' air yards, but he's going to see Casey Hayward, every time he lines up on the outside. So that's obviously a tough matchup for him to overcome. And then, Dion Lewis, I mean, Chargers have allowed the 4th most receiving yards to RBs this season, but we don't know what we're getting out of this passing game on a week-to-week basis. So Maybe as Mariota continues to get a little healthier, they can turn it around, but I don't really have any reason to believe it's going to be this week against, what is a talented Chargers defense, even without Joey Bosa.
Rosalie, what do you think?
Yeah, let's take a look here. Mariota, no. I mean, you look at his only good game this year was that Eagles game that Jeff was talking about. Everything else has been well under 10 points, including a 3-point game and a 5-point game. So no. Corey Davis, no. If they get Dion Lewis more involved in the passing game like they did against Philly, maybe, but for now, no. Derrick Henry, no. Maybe the Titans D at 2,600, they're averaging 10 fantasy points in away games, and this is an away game, but the Chargers don't give up a lot of fantasy points to defenses, so no.
I counted
a lot of yeses.
6 no's. Yeah. 0 maybes, 0 yeses. All right, you guys were great. You guys were fired up. We'll talk to you again in a bit. All right, let's stick around. We got to get to the NFL again. The NBA is just getting started. We've got a lot to cover, but first I caught up with Dr. Riley Williams earlier today for some insight on the latest and impactful injuries in the NFL. Happy to have Dr. Riley Williams joining us on The Sweat. Riley's resume includes work with the Brooklyn Nets, Team USA basketball, as well as the New York Red Bulls. Happy to stop by with us during the season. Hey, let's start with the Miami Dolphins. They're being investigated by the NFL about the way they've been handling the report of Ryan Tannehill's shoulder injury. So Brocktober lives on for now, but let's stick with Tannehill. League's questioning how he could go from a limited participant in practice for most of the week to not being able to throw on Sunday, while Dolphins are saying surgery is not an option. He also can't throw at the moment. So what is potentially going on with Ryan Tannehill's shoulder?
When you throw, there's a structure inside the shoulder that we've all probably heard of. It's called the labrum. And the labrum is attached to the biceps tendon that goes down the front of the shoulder. So what probably is going on here, he's probably got some labrum tear, some sort of instability going on that quite frankly, could progress during the course of a week. So I'm not totally surprised that he went from limited participation, not being able to throw. The biceps tendon in the front of the shoulder can get quite inflamed, and as a result, they may have determined as the week went through that it was better to shut him down for a while to allow that to heal itself. I don't know that I totally agree with the surgery not an option. Maybe surgery isn't an option because if it was, he'd miss the season. So they're trying to handle it non-operatively in hopes of getting him back at some point this year.
New York Jets leading receiver Quincy Enunwa, he's going to miss these next few weeks with a high ankle sprain. The Jets say at least 3 weeks, but high ankle sprains, they tend to linger. What makes them so difficult to recover from?
A high ankle sprain is really a major lower leg ligament tear. It's a tear between the two bones of the leg. It's a major destabilizing injury, and when you're a speed athlete needing to run and pivot and cut, it can make things very difficult. And physiologically, it really takes, even in the best circumstances, 6 weeks, maybe even 8 weeks to let these things fully heal. So when they occur in the NFL, usually the time by which players are going back to play is well short of the expected healing time for these injuries. That's why they linger, because in my opinion, they're just trying to get the athlete through to play even before true ligament soft tissue healing has taken place.
Eagles are still trying to shore up their offensive line. Left tackle Jason Peters is going to play this week despite what is being reported as a torn biceps injury. Simple question, doctor. How is that even possible that he might give it a go?
Well, there are two types of biceps injuries. There's the proximal biceps injury, which quite frankly, if it's that's when the biceps tendon just kind of pops off the labrum in the shoulder. We see those all the time, and they're not really structurally a problem. They can be sore, but I could see where he would certainly be able to play without any real risk to his well-being or shoulder moving forward. The distal biceps at the elbow is really the one that we as doctors think is an emergency, because if you don't fix it in a timely fashion, you can really lose a lot of strength and utilization and function of your elbow. So I did a little research, wasn't able to really kind of glean from the video or from the reports as to which one it was, but one can only assume based on the way he's sort of progressing that it's probably a proximal biceps and he should get through it quite well.
All right, let's finally go to Panthers tight end Greg Olsen. He's a big name for fantasy players because tight end is so tough to determine as far as getting good value. He returned last week after refracturing his right foot an injury that did cost him the end of the 2017 season. He's basically limiting his practice reps, keeping the stress off the foot so that he can play on Sundays. How high of a re-injury risk does Olsen have each week as he steps out onto the field?
David Chow has opined that they think this is a fifth metatarsal injury or a Jones fracture. I have a lot of experience with this in the NBA and MLS as well. Really quite the epidemic in the NFL because of the twisting torque sort of applications of force in the foot. So it seems like he had surgery for this last year. They probably put a screw in there and had good healing. And usually what you'll see in these re-injuries is not like a big new crack, but maybe the development of a line or a lucency in the bone that indicates that there's continued stress or a new fracture in the area. So by limiting the reps, you're really basically just sort of saying, hey, we acknowledge that there's a line here. We understand that continued load may be a problem. So they're trying to basically just expose the player to this force of playing in and around a game and using the week to try to rest and maintain it throughout the rest of the season. In my opinion, they'll probably need perhaps maybe even a fixation of that fracture at some point when the season's over. But this is just basically a management strategy that allows the player to continue to be available.
That's good stuff from Dr. Williams and I guess this guy, Glasheen. So time to welcome in the Hoop Heads DK Live's editor, Chirag Hira, and the Action Network's Matt LaMarca, where you can obviously find that Action Network app available on iPhones and Androids.
Yeah, thanks, Chirag. 9 games in the association tonight. No Edlow, so definitely not a LeBron night. It's actually not a LeBron night. However,
it was a LeBron night last night.
Last night, but not tonight. Anthony Davis is on the slate. Let's use the price check. Ding, ding, the price check. Yeah, there it is. There it is. There's the barcode. All right, Davis coming off a 77 DK point night at the Pelicans home opener. Highest priced player on the slate tonight, 11,600. New Orleans hosting the Kings. Chirag, let's go to you first. The brow worth that lofty price tag?
I'm not really feeling it tonight. I've been going through a ton of roster construction choices, and at that price, the value has just not opened up on the slate. So while he can score 60, while he can score 70 fantasy points, where is the rest of your lineup going to go? And I'm just not feeling it tonight, and I'm completely fading Anthony Davis tonight.
All right, LaMarca, do you have a scorcher to follow up with him?
Yeah, I really wish I could fit Anthony Davis into my lineups. Like, it's a great spot against the Sacramento Kings. The Pelicans are implied for like 1 million points tonight. But 11.6 is just too expensive given the lack of value options on the slate. I have to totally agree with that. If you look at his performance from opening night as well, he had a usage rate under 26%, which is a little low for him, but he made up for it by being just super efficient. So there is a situation at this, really high price tag where he doesn't return value tonight. So I think I'm going to have to just, hold my nose and kind of fade him here and hope that it goes my way.
No, I didn't think that would be the case. We're going to start our NBA segment by fading arguably the second, third best player in the game.
Hey, that's why these guys do it and we don't.
Yeah, I guess so.
Continuing on, Kawhi Leonard had a solid Raptors debut, 43.75 DraftKings points against the Cavs. Leonard's tabbed at 8,500 versus Celtics at home tonight. Action Matt, can he hit 5 times value against Boston?
I think he can do more than that. This is just too cheap for Kawhi. It's a tough matchup. The Celtics, we know how good they are on defense. They were first in defensive efficiency last season. But we still have him projected for 5.4x salary over at Fantasy Labs. He played 37 minutes on opening night. He averaged 1.32 fantasy points per minute in his limited playing time last year. So even though it's a tough matchup, I still think that 8,500 is just not enough for Kawhi Leonard.
Shrug, what do you think of that price tag?
100% agree. How can you fade a guy that had 28.8% true usage rate against the Cavs? This is going to be an amazing game, primetime spot, first ESPN spot for him in Toronto. I really don't believe you can fade Kawhi Leonard tonight. He's a cash game lock, tournament upside. He brings the steals. He's going to go lock down Jason Tatum. While I love Jason Tatum, I do believe that this is the spot for him to show off.
It'll be interesting to monitor the price tag of Leonard these first few weeks. If he goes off these first couple weeks and Toronto's off to a good start, that price will start to climb, I would imagine. All right, last price to check is Tobias Harris. We go from Davis to Leonard to Tobias Harris of the Clippers. He notched 40.5 DK points in 41 minutes in LA's last game. 7,400 versus the Thunder at home. Is this a bargain for someone playing that many minutes, Chirag?
Definitely. Agreed. While we can't project him to go for 41 minutes again, I do see a safe floor at about 36 minutes. And what I'm really looking at in this lineup is the Rooster. Danilo Gallinari took a ton of shots for the Clippers, but what you have to think about, Paul George is going to guard him. That's going to open up even more shots here for Tobias Harris. Patrick Patterson cannot stop him on the boards. He's going to be a roamer. So I believe there's double-double upside here. And this is projected to be actually a close game, so I'm going to have to go with definitely lock in Tobias Harris into your lineups.
How about you, Matt?
Well, first, shout out to Tobias Harris, Long Island kid. So I always have to keep my eye on those guys. But I think that the minutes were a little fluky in game one. I don't expect him to get near 40 again. I think 35 is probably, a safer assumption. And he did on opening night what he's done basically all of last year, which was he averaged right around 1 fantasy point per minute. So I think that 7,400 is a fair price tag for him. You can certainly play him there. And I agree with Sherrod that he's a nice, safe floor play. But I don't think he's like a super value or anything like that. I think he's just, pretty correctly priced right now.
All right, you two, stick around, Chirag. Please stay in that seat. Keep it warm. More NBA prep is on the way. And don't you worry, Mike Francesa joins us soon. But first, we go to Adam Levitan and the boys from the DFS Edge with their Week 7 conviction plays.
Sounds like I might be stealing some people's here, but I get to go first, so I get to steal everybody's. I'll say Robert Woods. The cup usage leaves so much behind, and then Robert Woods also gets this matchup against who knows what they're going to put out there, Jimmy Ward or I don't even know. Akila Witherspoon got benched. They're just a disaster everywhere outside of Richard Sherman's safety play has been terrible. So Robert Woods, who continues to be underrated, really this team's number one wideout all year, in this matchup with Cooper Kupp out, is just kind of a perfect storm scenario for Robert Woods. So I'll go ahead and make him my conviction play.
Yeah, love the Robert Woods call. I'm going to go in cash games. Load up on Beat Hard. Let's go. Boy. Let's get CJ Beathard. I'm saying he is the play in cash games. Obviously, Todd Gurley's the easy conviction play. I would have thrown him out there, but that's just, you don't need to listen to a podcast, have someone tell you to play Todd Gurley. So I'm not going to do that. I think Beathard makes sense in cash games this week. There's a lot of players that we want to pay up for on a short slate. And in general, the best lineups are paying down at quarterback. So I have conviction that that's the right play. Obviously, there's risk when you're playing CJ Beathard, but 4,800, I'm locking him in cash games. And I have conviction on playing him in cash games. Al, what's your conviction play and get us out of here?
I mean, look, Todd Gurley is the low-hanging fruit. He's very easy to say. You're all playing him. I'll move on and take a little bit more of a risk this week to David Njoku, leading the team with a 23.5% of market share of targets from Baker Mayfield. He's tied with Ebron for the most tight end targets over the last 2 weeks. And in one of the best game situations that you can be in going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this is going to be a situation where I'm expecting a minimum of 7 targets for Njoku, possibly all the way up to 10, 11, with a good amount of the red zone looks as well. You can fit him in. You can fit all the guys that these other two gentlemen have mentioned as their conviction plays, as well as the free square with Todd Gurley. Start there, move on with the rest of your lineups, and take a stand in tournaments.
All right, thanks for the conviction, boys. Earlier today, had a chance to catch up with WFAN radio host Mike Francesa, a.k.a. the Sports Pope. Hit on a variety of topics. We came out of the gates starting baseball reaction to the Boston Red Sox going to the World Series and winning 3 games in a row in Houston. You said before the series the Astros were the more complete team. How stunned were you that Boston wiped out the Stros in Houston?
I was surprised how easy it was, but we talked about it, that the Astros were going to have to get the performances they got last year, and that was that the starters were going to have to pitch well out of the pen for them or be key guys for them in that series, and they didn't get that. They didn't get it from Morton. They didn't get it from McCullers. And then, you know what? The Red Sox made every play. I mean, you got to give them credit. Their bullpen which had been a big problem for them down the stretch, and they were very worried about in the Yankee series, came up big, especially their middle relievers. They got an incredible performance from Jackie Bradley, who's there to play defense and who had 9 RBIs, I mean, in huge spots. And then the Eovaldi game was big. Last night, you get the idea that Houston was beaten, so maybe they didn't fight hard enough to go back to Boston, that it was inevitable. It was a good spot for Price in that there was no pressure, even going up against Verlander, and no one expected anything. So he came up with a good performance for a change. First one he's ever had as a starter. So from that standpoint, I was a little surprised that they didn't maybe force the game back to Boston. But Boston had been the better team in the series, and every break went Boston's way. They made every catch. They got big hits. They got guys contributing in the bottom of the order. They got it in their bullpen. So, that's how you win these series is you get a lot of guys contribute and the ball bounces your way, and that's what happened in this series.
Let's get your thoughts. LA wrap this thing up tonight, or does Milwaukee force a Game 7 at home?
It's been such a hard series to figure. It really is. I think I'll be watching Yelich because, you know what? He had a great year. He even called out Manny Machado in the series for being dirty, which I think he's accurate about. But he also has hit 150. He's a guy who almost won a Triple Crown. This is a guy who carried that team. He needs to show up tonight. If they listen, they still have a chance in this series. The Dodgers are not a great team. Neither one of these teams are great teams. But right now, obviously, the Dodgers deserve to be the favorites. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if Milwaukee wins tonight at all. But, I think the Dodgers are the better team. But I'll be very much watching Yelich here. I think a lot of pressure on him to come up tonight with a big performance.
Let's go to the NFL. Want to get your thoughts on the Cardinals. They fired offensive coordinator Mike McCoy after last night's butt whooping.
That was happening. You knew that was coming.
Okay, so they're 7 games into the year. You got a rookie in Josh Rosen. David Johnson hasn't bounced back from the injury. Was this the right move by Arizona?
Listen, there was trouble. He was on the brink of being fired 2 weeks ago. So after last night, I didn't even watch all the game last night, but when I saw the numbers in the game, I knew they were going to make a change. They had felt that they had really exposed the kid unfairly. The kid had felt that he had been exposed unfairly. He had been in other games. They hadn't really been on the same page. So I don't think there was any question this was coming. And then last night, Denver's been a team that was reeling. Let's be honest. The Jets just got 500 yards of offense against that Denver defense. 300 on the ground, 200 in the air. Sam Darnold picked that team apart 2 weeks ago, and that team yesterday looked like the 85 Bears against against Arizona. That was not a good situation for either the young quarterback or his offensive coordinator. There could be a lot of massive changes in Arizona. Arizona's in the throes, of a real rebuilding time. I think Rosen's pretty good. I think this group of quarterbacks is going to be a good group. There are a bunch of guys who are going to be here a long time. But Rosen's probably going to be, along with Josh Allen, in the spots where it's going to take the longest for them to develop players around them. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
LeBron James in a Laker uniform for the first time. You weighed in. You thought it was good to see him back. Hey, how about a prediction for the Lakers season? They do take on the Rockets tomorrow.
Here's the problem as I see it. I said that early because the excitement he brings, the 2 dunks, if you were watching early in the game and what he did in the first quarter, the way they fell apart as soon as he left the floor was very telling. The other problem is this. They're not built right now. You know what? You can talk about how Rondo's going to help. You can talk about Ball. You can talk about anybody you want. When he's on the floor, he's the point guard. So to have another point guard with him who doesn't shoot well, it doesn't work. It does not work. You cannot have a guy on the floor with him who is going to play there, whose primary role is a ball handler. It's a worthless job.
It's always good to hear from Mike Francesa. I mean,
He's great.
A new Friday tradition we have here on The Sweat. Speaking of a tradition unlike any other, no, not Augusta National, something a hair less illustrious and a lot more infamous. It's DK Live's very own Steve Buchanan to talk Major League Baseball.
Oh, wait. We're actually doing Steve by himself.
There we go. He's got his own segment.
Look at that. That big mug
Don't need
filling up the
anybody else.
screen. Yeah, okay. We're looking at your top choices for tonight's NLCS Game 6. Showdown contest. Dodgers go to Milwaukee to take on the Brewers, up 3-2. Steve, looking at the Showdown tonight, if you had to roster Wade Miley in Game 5, you probably weren't happy. Any interest in Miley tonight?
I mean, if you're rostering Wade Miley, you're probably not going to be happy even if he went 5 or 6 innings because he's just not that type of pitcher. I mean, I guess Game 5, they were considering that a bullpen session, so I guess it was okay. He walked the guy, so I don't know how well that session went. But look, the problem with the Brewers pitching tonight is that they're on the brink of elimination. So if anything goes south, Miley's going to be getting that vaudeville hook really fast tonight. He doesn't provide a ton of strikeout upside either. Against the Dodgers club this season, just a K9 of 4.8. Not really what you're looking for in a starting pitcher, especially on a showdown slate. Like, I get why you could be interested. If Matt LaMarca was on this one, he'd be like, oh, you're going to play all the starting pitchers. But he's not here, so obviously you can't say that. But, I mean, no, Miley's just not the way here. Like I said, if anything goes south quick, he's going to be getting the heave-ho.
We move LaMarca to the NBA decided discussion
he's listening,
tonight.
though.
Keep him there.
Okay.
He's heard everything. How about on the flip side, Bud? There he is! There he is! Let's give him one.
That
one
is
time,
great.
Slate approved. I appreciate
That is great.
He's muted. He can't even defend himself.
Yeah, he's muted. He can't even defend. That is cold. So we're going on the flip side with the Dodgers, but Hyunjin Ryu is priced at $15K.
That's good.
Too steep of a salary. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been fantastic this entire season, but especially since the beginning of September. Since that time, 286 WOBA with a 31% hard hit rate and decay 9 of 9. I mean, he is super expensive, like you mentioned, but the upside is there for him tonight, and I think he's definitely someone worth taking. Then you can just take a reliever if you want to even out your lineup. I mean, if you think the Dodgers are going to win this game, then it makes sense to pair him with Jansen, who runs you for only 3,100 tonight, and then you're back up to just under 8,000 to fill up the rest of your lineup. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense, especially if you're on the Dodgers side for this game. So I don't think the price tag is too much. The Brewers hitters are really, really priced low tonight, so I think you can definitely fit them in.
Yeah, Steve, let's get into that. Outside of Christian Yelich, no Brewers hitter is more than 7,900. You mentioned there's value, right? Some good value. How about some bats that you like?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about the showdowns is you really have to figure out how you think this game is going to play out. I mean, for example, if you want to side with the Brewers in this game, then you can really get some value with these bats here. I mean, look, for example, Travis Shaw is batting cleanup tonight at 6,300. It's a bad matchup for him with the left on left, but if you think Ryu's going to be out of this game early, you're probably going to get Shaw some pretty decent ownership and then facing those righties because that's the strong matchup for him. I mean, look, this is a guy who has a 378 WOBA and a 285 isolated power at home against righties this season. Then, of course, if you think the Brewers aren't going to do that good and Ryu's going to be in there for a while, Lorenzo Cain batting leadoff. He's been great against lefties all season long, and you're usually not going to get a leadoff hitter that cheap. So, again, you really have to figure out how this game is going to go, how you want to attack this game. And I think that can really open up some value, especially on the Brewers side, because actually, as we mentioned, they're just so cheap tonight. So you definitely can take those guys and fit a bunch of them in there.
All right, so last but not least, I want to do something a little different here. I want your slate-approved pick and who you think LaMarca would be choosing as well. And you can either dispute or agree with that statement. What do you think?
If it's LaMarca, his slate approved would be to put all the starting pitchers in there. He's probably going to fit in guys that aren't even playing tonight, but they're a starting pitcher. Oh, look at there he is.
He's nodding. At least he's nodding in agreement in some capacity.
Yeah, of course he is. But look, I'm going to go with Ryu here. I think he's just going to have a fantastic game. I really like the Brewers to open this series, but I just don't think they're going to get it done here. I think Ryu's going to shut them down. And the Dodgers are going to go on to face the Red Sox, who I'm sure some people in the back production, maybe Tom, is not too happy about because the Astros are gone. Peace.
So on a night where Matt LaMarca isn't on the segment, Steve Buchanan manages to pick a starting pitcher in your face.
Yeah, I love
hey,
it.
but it's a good spot. It's worth using him. Matt wants to use Clayton Kershaw when he stinks most of the time in the playoffs. So, I mean, that's why Matt's not even on this segment anymore.
It's like salt in the wounds. All right, but sounds good. We still got a lot of NBA coming up real soon. But first, let's toss to Pierce Dietrich for the Hollywood Casinos 400 at Kansas Speedway in this week's NASCAR Price Check.
Welcome to Price Check. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Let's look at the South 400 up to 10,800. He won both Kansas races last year. He finished second in the spring. What more do you need to know? Kyle Busch, 9,400 up to 11,800. When they repaved the track a couple years ago, he struggled, but he's fine now. But is he better than Harvick? Is he better than Truex? Kyle Larson, 8,000 all the way up to 11,500. Here's the question. He was the best car probably in the first Kansas race. But was that because of the progressive banking or the fact that he pulled the old cave in the rear window trick? Whose salary dropped this week? Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 9,000 down to 6,700. He did not wreck last week. He finished third. If NASCAR ever expands the restrictor plate package, this guy's going to win a championship. Joey Logano, 10,700 down to 8,500. He's third in the standings. He's been the most consistent driver over the last 2 months. Why is he so cheap? Alex Bowman, 8,600 down to 7,600. Why is he so expensive? Does anyone still believe that putting him in the 88 car was a good idea? Does anyone believe that? Favorite player of the week, Kevin Harvick, 12,300. He was one of the best cars in the first Kansas race, if not the best car, and he's been one of the best cars, if not the best car, at every single intermediate track race this year. Don't overthink it. Ryan Blaney, 8,700. He's good at the fast tracks. At Kansas last year, he scored a bunch of points in both races, and he was going to do the same this year, but he wrecked late in the race. All right, guys, check out the DK playbook for your DFS information and needs. If you've got NASCAR questions, hit me up on Twitter at @RaceForThePrize. I'm Pierce Dietrich. Catch me on DK Live.
Well, doesn't good old Pierce Dietrich just cheer you up? I mean, no tears with him. Aha. We're going to hit on tears of joy now in the National Basketball Association. Matt LaMarca, dude, I hope you're all right after Steve just kind of ripped into you there.
I don't know what it is. The guy's obsessed with me.
Yeah,
even when I'm not on the segment with him, he's got to bring
honestly,
me up.
He missed you. He just missed you. Hey, and there's Chirag here. You guys are certainly familiar with one another because we had you on earlier in the show.
Absolutely, and obviously this is tier, so we'll read off players in tier 3 first, and then we'll go down, obviously. But gents, you give us your favorite play in said tier. So Victor Oladipo, Jimmy Butler, Kevin Love, Kemba Walker, Aaron Gordon, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell in tier 3. So who is your favorite out of those 7, Matt? What do you think?
I'm going to go with Wade Miley. Just kidding.
Boom.
I like Kevin Love here. I think there were a lot of good things in Love's opening night performance. He posted a usage rate of 32.4%. That was higher than in all but 5 games from last season. So I think that with LeBron obviously now playing in Los Angeles, he's going to have a chance to put up a pretty big offensive season. The only thing that stopped him from having a good game 1 was he shot 5 of 18 from the field. So I think that he's due for some positive regression moving forward, and I think that starts tonight against the Timberwolves in a old revenge game.
Chirag, who are you going with here? Jimmy Butler?
Well, speaking of revenge, you know I have a condo in LA on Meredith Street, so
yeah,
I'm about the revenge. But at the same time, you know, I'm kind of concerned here. Karl-Anthony Towns is going to play better. Taj Gibson is a strong rebounder as well. So I believe that the rebounding upside might not be there for Kevin Love. My favorite play, Kemba Walker. I'm going to have to go with Kemba Walker just because of the fact the minutes are there. He's a starting point guard in a pace-up matchup. That usage is amazing. He took 13 three-pointers in his last game, 13 three-pointers. Welcome to the new NBA, and Kemba is leading the charge, and you need to get him in your Tier 3 lineup.
All right, Chirag, back to you for Tier 4. Listen carefully. I read these 7 names. I don't repeat them. Chris Middleton, Dennis Schroeder, Tobias Harris, a guy we talked about already, Nikola Vucevic, Enes Kanter, Kyle Lowry, or Drew Holiday.
Drew. I'm going to go with Drew here because of the fact that, you know, in this lineup, we're going to be facing against Sacramento. Buddy Hield is not a strong defender. He's not known for that. And while it's a great spot for him, I believe that this is a really strong upside play because everyone's really going to be off him after that bad play. If you're really looking for kind of a safer play, I'd go to Kyle Lowry or Tobias Harris. But the upside play completely here, Drew Holiday.
How about you, Action Matt?
I'm in agreement. I like Drew Holiday. If you look at his numbers last season without DeMarcus Cousins, he saw like a 3% bump in usage, averaged 1.16 fantasy points per minute. So the fact that he didn't have a good game 1 does not scare me at all. Sacramento's an awesome matchup. They were 27th in defensive efficiency last season. The Pelicans are implied for 121.5 points tonight. They play at the fastest pace in the league. So I think the Pelicans, basically, you can't go wrong with whoever you're targeting on that side.
I think this just further makes your point that you are scared of Anthony Davis, but you guys are into...
I'm always scared if he's not in my lineup.
Sure. Well, scared meaning just the salary we discussed earlier. So you're going with the point guard there in New Orleans. All right.
All right, so let's move to tier 6. Yeah, well... Oh, correction.
I know, Shrug's always correcting me.
So let's go to tier 6, and I will repeat them because I'm nicer than this guy. Eric Bledsoe, Tyreek the Freak Evans, that's probably not his nickname, Jeff Teague, Karis LeVert, Taurean Prince, Jason Tatum, De'Aaron Fox, or Alfred Payton, who sadly shaved his hair anyway. So what do you think, Matt?
I like Karis LeVert in this tier. The only thing that's stopping that guy from becoming a fantasy stud is minutes. And I think that this year is the time that finally changes. He played 30 minutes on opening night, averaged 1.19 fantasy points per minute, and now he's got a great matchup against the Knicks, who are defensively challenged, to put it nicely. So I like LeVert here. I think he's in for a big season. He's going to be in the 7Ks soon.
Shrug, what do you think? Where are you going?
I do like LeVert, but I do have a question for you. How do you think Alan Crabb's return is going to impact Karis LeVert's usage tonight and those minutes? Like, that's what scares me in this tier right here.
Yeah, he might see a few less minutes. That's definitely a good point. I don't think they're going to look to push Crabbe too hard in his first game back. And there are definitely other guys in the rotation, I think, that could lose some minutes as well, like, a Joe Harris type.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to have to go with De'Aaron Fox in this one. I want to stack that top projected slate game. He's a starting point guard again. The ball's going to be in his hands, and I feel like, you know what? While everybody loved Alfred Payton, let's not forget, this guy's not a good defender. De'Aaron Fox is going to burn him, and he's the focal point of this offense. He gets everyone set up. He played 38 minutes against Utah Jazz and had, 41 fantasy points. While we can't expect 41 fantasy points, those minutes and that usage is pretty healthy.
Kings Pelicans sounds like a game to target. All right, before we let you guys go, slate approved picks for this 9-game NBA slate. Matt, you first.
I'm going with Kevin Love. I think he's going to have low ownership after disappointing on night 1, but I'm buying him all that I can for this season.
And you, Mr. Hira.
I'm going with Jarrett Allen. I love to attack Enes Kanter. He's a poor defender. That's kind of my guy right now. You got 30 minutes from Jarrett Allen. While you got Karis LeVert handling the ball, D'Angelo Russell also taking a bunch of shots. That double-double upside with the defense against the Knicks, lock it in. Slate approved.
Hey, Matt LaMarco, we know you cover baseball, man. Let's real quick. Your slate approved baseball picks. He can spit right in Steve's face.
My slate-approved baseball pick is play NBA tonight. It's just better.
Oh, nicely done.
Oh, is that a cop-out? That was kind of a cop-out.
Yeah, it was a fail. All right, LaMarcus, see you later. Sharag, enjoy the Lakers tomorrow night against Houston. In case you didn't know, guys, NFL games in London are happening again this week. The Titans and Chargers are going to square off. It's a matchup that's available in showdown mode this weekend on DraftKings. Our pal Adam Kaufman, you've heard of Kaufman, right? That guy. All right. He caught up with Chargers team reporter Chris Hayre to discuss the LA side of this contest in the United Kingdom.
Chargers have won 3 straight to move to 4-2, the offense averaging 31 points along the way. I'm Adam Kaufman, and Bolts team reporter Chris Hayre is with me to talk about LA's success. Chris, Chargers in London this weekend. Obviously a fun trip for everybody to face the Titans. Phillip Rivers, he's Mr. Charger. Guy's just slinging it. 15 TDs, only 3 interceptions. What's the key been for him so far early this year?
Man, he's found the fountain of youth at 36 years old. I tell you, you actually go back to 2008. I was just talking with you offline about this. Last time the Chargers played in London, they lost to the Saints 37-32, and Drew Brees was in that game. You fast forward 10 years later, number 1 and number 2 in quarterback rating, Drew Brees and Phillip Rivers, the same 2 guys that were in the same quarterback's room when Phillip was drafted in 2004. So he's got a balanced attack, Adam, and I tell you, it starts with Melvin Gordon. You got that 1-2 punch of Gordon and Eckler in the backfield, and just a ton of weapons on the outside, starting with Keenan Allen, Tyrell Williams, who had a big game last week, and then Mike Williams, the second-year receiver, the All-American from Clemson, who's had some big games as well.
Well, Melvin Gordon, another young star, he's giving fantasy fans everything they could hope for, even with Austin Eckler getting regular touches. Is Gordon in line for another huge day against Tennessee?
I'd say so. I think this offense runs through him, Adam. And you look at his stats, 745 total yards from scrimmage. He's got 9 touchdowns total, second to just Todd Gurley. And I actually pulled up his stats from the first 6 games of 2016, which was his only Pro Bowl season. He has 30 receptions this year. At that point in 2016, he only had 14 receptions. So he has 16 more receptions. He's catching the ball. And I know for fantasy owners and daily fantasy players, that helps when you're catching the ball out of the backfield. So I look for Melvin to have another standard day by his standards, and it's nothing against Tennessee. Tennessee's 26th in rushing, but I think Melvin, he's going to beat you on the ground and also through the air.
Well, I'll tell you what else helps. Big plays, long scores, and Tyrell Williams, he had a pair of long TDs on Sunday. You see the Chargers trying to get him more involved in the passing game, or is he just sort of stretching the field and providing that big play potential whenever the opportunity's there for him?
Well, I tell you, Adam, I think everybody eats in this offense, and you don't know who it's going to be from week to week in the passing game. I think Keenan Allen is that one constant in terms of targets and target share. But, we saw week 2, Mike Williams get his first touchdown. We saw week 3, Mike Williams score 2 touchdowns. And then we saw last week against the Cleveland Browns, Tyrell Williams, 3 catches, 118 yards, and it was all within the span of less than 7 minutes in the second quarter. So, we haven't even mentioned a guy like Travis Benjamin who's been out. So Phillip has a lot of weapons at his disposal, and if you're open, he's going to get you the ball.
Let's talk about a guy you brought up, Keenan Allen. 7 games over 100 yards, 9 games with over 10 targets, I should say, last season. Now this year, still producing double-digit fantasy points each week, but only 1 100-yard receiving game, 2 with 10 targets. Is the Chargers offense just more balanced, like you said, everybody eats, or are teams working harder to take Allen away?
It's probably a combination of both, I'd say, Adam. The first game he had a touchdown. I think he only has 1 touchdown in the year, so Keenan may be due to get in the end zone here sooner than later, but I think it's just a testament to how they've been able to play football. And you get 2 running backs, 3 touchdowns each on the ground. Like I said, Melvin has 9. Tyrell Williams has 3 touchdowns this year. Mike Williams has 3 touchdowns this year. You got 1 from Antonio Gates, 1 from Virgil Green. So it's a balanced attack. And when you have a top 5 wide receiver like Keenan Allen who can run routes better than essentially everybody in the league, it's going to open up things for other people. So I think no question teams are focused on Keenan Allen, but it's just another added dimension to this offense.
All right, prediction time, my man. Who is in line for a big game for the Chargers in London?
Well, I think you got to play the odds. And I say Keenan Allen has 1 touchdown in the year. I believe it came in week 1. I think he's due to get 6. And then Mike Williams is another guy you don't want to sleep on. I mentioned that 6'4", 220 frame. He's a guy that may be able to get some stuff done in the passing game. And then obviously it's a no-brainer with Melvin Gordon. Austin Eckler, too. I think you can find him as a bargain. He doesn't get a ton of touches at him, but he's so efficient with those touches. So Gordon is the constant. Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen.
Chris Hayre, team reporter for...
Welcome back, everyone, and welcome back to our esteemed NFL panel. Jeff Ulrich of DK Live.
You like that word.
I love it. It's the best word. Jeff Ulrich of DK Live, the fantasy girl Rosalie Michaels, and Ian Hartitz from the Action Network, where you can find his app. And you can find a Johnny Manziel sweater on his wall as well. And that app you can find on Androids and iPhones.
All right, time for over-under, guys. You all have done this before, I think, but as a refresher, we'll present a player and a point projection. You'll tell us if they go over or under that said projection. So since it's a very complicated process, we're going to go to Jeff first. Tom Brady has gone over 20 DK fantasy points in 4 of 6 games this season. He is facing Khalil Mack and the Bears' 9th-ranked defense. So does he go over or under 20 fantasy points at Chicago?
I'm going to go with a big over here. I mean, I know people are scared of the Bears' defense, but passing-wise, they've given up big games. I mean, we saw what Brock Osweiler did last week, but week 1, Aaron Rodgers picked them apart too. Their secondary isn't that strong, and you also add in the fact that Khalil Mack's a little bit banged up. I mean, they are. I'll say, and the last thing I'll say is they're good against stopping the run, and the Patriots have been running the ball well. But I think this is all going to lead into more passing attempts for Brady. I think he is going to be able to get it going here. So I'm going to take the over here for sure.
We're concerned, Pat's coming off that big win against the Chiefs, and everyone, it's a letdown game, trap game for New England. Rosalie, what do you think? Brady, over under 20 points?
I I hate that term trap game. I think it's just.
Excuse me.
Talk to the players.
You hate Brendan. I got it. 10-4.
Yeah. I did that math too.
I think if you talk to the players, they just don't love, that term trap game, because they're going to go out there and they're going to play hard every week.
Letdown game.
Yeah. Yeah, letdown game.
All right.
That's fine.
Okay.
I'll go with that. But yeah, the Bears get in your face, but we know that Brady can handle that, right? And if you look at the history with Brady and the Bears, he averages about 300 yards and almost 3 touchdowns per game versus the Bears. And with the amount of targets that Brady has to throw to, and the fact that, like Jeff said, they let up a ton of fantasy points to Brock freaking Osweiler. So I have to go over on this. You have to.
All right, Ian, what do you think for Mr. Brady in Chicago this weekend?
Yeah, I don't like betting against Brady as much as possible, but we have to keep an eye on Khalil Mack. I mean, he does have this ankle injury. He is questionable. Marcus Cannon, the Patriots' right tackle, has already been ruled out. So not ideal, but just look at this Patriots offense the last 2 weeks. They've finally gotten Edelman back. Josh Gordon's snap count was over 80% last week. So he is in the offense now. It's him, Edelman, and Hogan's the third wide receiver. And in the 2 weeks that we've really seen Edelman and Gordon making things happen, they've scored 43 and 38 points. So Bears have a very good defense, but, played a lot of plays last week coming back from Miami. I'm taking the Patriots offense to score a lot of points here. I think the Bears could do the same on the other side of the ball.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting. Well, Bears defense is pretty stout. Now has Brady going over 20. I mean, if there's one guy we've talked about it quite a bit, it's him to bet over that 20 mark. So Mark Ingram, after a great debut, goes over or under 20 fantasy points against the 6th-ranked Ravens run defense. Rosalie, what do you think?
I'm kind of surprised, but I'm going under on this. I mean, if you look at Mark Ingram, that whole two-headed monster that we see down there, we get very, very excited about both of them. But when you look at last year's games, out of the 16 games, Mark Ingram only had 6 that were actually over 20 fantasy points. The Ravens defense, we all know how good it is, allowing the 3rd fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs this season. And Baltimore has only allowed 1 touchdown to running backs all season. So not a complete bust for Mark Ingram. I still think he'll be in the teens, but I don't expect 20s out of him this week.
Ian, what do you think? I mean, you have a lot of guys under that, obviously, that can provide value. He's obviously not that expensive. You also have Kamara as the 2nd most expensive. So what do you think for Mark Ingram here?
Yeah, I'm going to have more exposure to Kamara this week, I think, just trying to play off that recency bias where we saw Ingram really get most of the work in that Monday night game. We've heard Sean Payton talk since about how their workload's going to be split more 50-50 moving forward. So I'm not too worried about either Ingram or Kamara's touches here on a weekly basis. But, yeah, just tough matchup here for Ingram. And also just road games in general, they've been bad for Drew Brees, the entire offense, and Mark Ingram. I mean, it's not just one of these things where the Saints passing offense struggles on the road. I mean, the whole offense just kind of scores less points. So not really ideal for anyone. But with that said, I will take my chances with Kamara's receiving workload. I'll take the under here on these 20 points. And also keep in mind the Saints starting left guard, Andrews Pete, is out. And their starting right guard is questionable. So it could be less than 100% against this ferocious Ravens front.
Jeff, we got 2 unders. Are you going over here or not?
No, I mean, it's a pretty big ask, 20 points against, the team that's given up the fewest fantasy points to opposing running backs in the Ravens. And then, you look at the totals too. I mean, New Orleans only has a 23-point implied team total going into this game. Mark Ingram scored twice and barely got over 20 fantasy points in his first game. I don't even know if he did get over 20 fantasy points. It was close, but it comes to my point. He's going to have to find the end zone here. I don't think he's going to do it on volume alone. So, again, the price looks tempting, but I'm going to go under for the 20.
All right, let's move on. Ian, over under 15 points against or for DeAndre Hopkins. He's going up against the NFL's 2nd best pass defense in Jacksonville that did give up 40 to the Dallas Cowboys last week. What do we think here? Let's start with Ian and work our way in.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the under here. It's certainly a point total he's capable of getting. I mean, he went for 18.5 and 18 DraftKings points against the Jaguars last year. So I'm saying this could be the first time he's gonna go under that in his last 3 matchups. But You know, he was banged up all week in practice. Actually saw him sit out Thursday. He's not on the final injury report, but you know, when you're expecting a full afternoon of Jalen Ramsey shadowing you, it's just a matchup I'm not really looking to invest in too highly. So the big thing I'm taking away from his previous games here against Jalen Ramsey, they faced off 4 times now, and DeAndre has caught just 24 of 59 targets.
Wow.
So he's really put up numbers against the Jaguars with a ton of volume, which not saying he won't get that this week, but you know, with Will Fuller and Kiki Kute kind of having more established roles than we've seen in the past, not really a situation I'm thinking too highly of.
Jeff, what do you think? Does the Ramsey matchup with Hopkins scare you away from 15 fantasy points?
I think 15 is doable, to be honest. I think just volume alone might get him there. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like Houston's going to be ended up passing a lot. They play at a fast pace. I think just volume alone, he might be able to scrape over 15 points. So I'll take the slight over. He might need a touchdown to hit 20. I'm not advocating for DeAndre Hopkins as like the fantasy player. I'm just saying that from 15 fantasy points, he's still one of the top receivers in the league, and he has hit that mark against Jalen Ramsey before. So I would lean over here slightly, but it's still not a good spot, really, when you think about it.
All right, Rosalie, break the tie.
Yeah, I'm going under as well. You know, it's hard to do that, though, against DeAndre Hopkins, right? Because you look at it, he's only had 1 game so far this year that was under 15 points, and that was at 14.6. So it's really hard to go against him, but my gut in this says he's going to be closer to 12. Again, the guys mentioned the injuries, the fact that there's more targets now. You know, they're going to have to pass, but they always have to pass because they don't have much of a run game outside of Deshaun Watson. You know, the Texans' offense has just been uninspiring, and the Jags is better at home than they are away. And Houston only scored 7 points in each game in the last 2 meetings with Jacksonville. They don't score a lot of points against Jacksonville. So yeah, they're all injured, all those wide receivers, they're all expected to play, but I don't think that we're going to see a lot of end zone action from the Houston Texans this weekend. And I think that's what he needs in order to get over 15.
I mean, this guy is priced now. You see it at 6,900. 15, yes, is obviously crazy, but and against Jalen Ramsey. But I mean, that price tag, it's pretty nice. But anyway, moving on. Eagles tight end Zach Ertz. I know, to end the show. Over under 15 fantasy points against one of the league's best defenses against the tight ends and Panthers. Rosalie, what do you think?
I'm a little confused when you say that it's one of the best defenses against tight ends, because they're actually giving up a good amount of fantasy points to tight ends, the Panthers are. I mean, they're one of the worst against tight ends. Last week was the first time that Zach Ertz had single-digit targets at 9. So he's had double-digit targets the whole year, no matter who was at quarterback. And now, obviously, that Wentz is back, we know Wentz loves him. So they're not giving up, Panthers aren't giving up a huge amount of yards to tight ends, but they are giving up the touchdowns. And Ertz is definitely an end zone target for Carson Wentz. He's had one touchdown in each of the last 2 games since Carson Wentz has been back. And, you know, I think he's going to get some more this weekend. So I think he is over 15 fantasy points this week.
Jeff, what do you think? He's the highest priced tight end in the slate. You heard from Rosalie. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the slight under here, just kind of like I was with Hopkins. I mean, the targeting has been really solid. I can't discount that. But the matchup maybe isn't the greatest. I mean, the Panthers, they have a pretty solid crew of linebackers, right, with Luke Kuechly. And then you look at these two teams; they're both kind of in the bottom half of pace of play. The total here is only 45. It's not projected to be like a shootout style of game. It just speaks to one of those games where Ertz might only get 7 to 9 targets and come up with like 50 yards. And then it depends on if he finds the end zone. And he has been finding the end zone of late. But like if he doesn't get that garbage time end zone last week, then, he's kind of not really putting up a big game. And I could see that scenario playing out here. And then it comes down to price, which is a different, conversation. But I guess it's me to say I think he's overpriced this week. But I'm going to take the under 15 points.
Ian, we got about 60 seconds left. What do you think?
I'm taking the over here. I do think we need to worry about this matchup in terms of Ertz's ceiling, but there's just too many targets. I mean, he's got 67. The next closest tight end's only at 55. So just truly separating himself kind of at the position as a whole. And, we've seen Austin Hooper go for 60 yards and a touchdown, Tyler Eifert and CJ Uzoma. combined for similar stats against the Panthers this year. So I think just the fact that we've seen Ertz keep this massive role with Alshon Jeffrey back in the lineup over these last 2 weeks makes me confident he can keep producing at this level moving forward.
Ian, Jeff, Rosalie, thanks a lot. You guys were great. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you guys Sunday. Hey, Reid, good job tonight, man. I learned, I'm going to just start. I learned really quickly, trap game. Rosalie said no more use of the trap game terminology. How about you, quickly?
Justin Timberlake is the best. I didn't learn that. I already knew that. I can't stay out late because I'm too old.
Check us out this Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Reid went to Justin Timberlake last night. He had a lot of fun. 11:30 a.m. Eastern right here. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, on the DraftKings pages for our Sunday Sweat Show. You have a good one. For Reid Fowler, I'm Brendan Glasheen. And
take it easy.
Yeah, take it easy. Have a good weekend. Have a good night.